Welcome to Loop TV. I'm your host, Gene Munster, along with Andrew Murphy. Our topic today is Epic versus Apple. This battle continues to rage on. Before we jump in, I want to make a special note that we have the world's foremost expert on this topic, Andrew. Andrew, in fact, was at the launch, is this right, Andrew, of the App Store? I can't tell you, circa 2011. When was that?
Yeah, 2010, the announcement of the App Store when Steve Jobs took the stage with John Doerr of Kleiner Perkins and announced the App Store and the iFund to fund new apps and services that were being built for the platform.
Capacity of the theater, this was their town hall theater back in the old One Infinite Loop campus. Capacity of the theater, I'm going to guess, was probably a couple hundred. How many people in attendance?
Yeah, I was gonna say 100, 150, and there was probably 30 people there.
30 people. Well, you have watched this arc of growing from an idea to a massive business. So here we are, and jumping back into the A topic around Apple versus Epic. Some background
It's
is,
good to acknowledge the bias, though, of
yep,
seeing the baby grow up to be
yeah,
a powerful player
I'll
in the
do my
business
best
world.
to keep your biases in check, but I appreciate you doing a bias check-in before. And the background is Apple, of course, Epic has Fortnite. They, before the summer, up until August, they had generated a lot of money, call it $350 million, our estimate, in the previous 12 months by selling different digital assets around Fortnite on iOS. And in August, Epic said, we are going to create our own payments platform to circumvent iOS. And Apple said that is in violation of the terms as a developer, app developer, and removed the ability to update or download new Fortnite. That is still the case. Another piece of the background is that since then, in November, Apple came on their own movement, decided to make a change to the take rate for smaller developers. This is developers with less than 1 million in annual revenue on the App Store. They moved that from 30% down to 15%. As the point of this recording of Loop TV, it still stands. You cannot download or update your Fortnite on iOS. And a couple other just quick updates is yesterday, the North Dakota state legislator ruled essentially in favor of Apple on a suit that Epic had brought or was behind the suit. They were a financier of this suit, which would have required app developers to at least get an option to have their own payments platform. And then Epic is also part of further lawsuits in the EU and the UK. So the temperature around this continues to bubble. We're going to save all the colorful language between the two companies and leave it with they don't like each other. So bringing you in here, Andrew, is given where we come, the background, I'd like your take on, like, why does Epic keep pushing here? What are they trying to accomplish?
Well, I think you should follow the money. And according to our estimates, Epic is paying about $100 million bill annually to Apple just to run Fortnite on iOS. And those come as Apple's 30% take of the payments and transactions that are happening in Fortnite. So they've got $100 million reason why they want to limit this. And I think genuinely they feel like the 30% take rate is unfair. My guess is that they would be willing to pay a more reasonable, in their opinion, 10 million, 20 million. That would be a much smaller take rate, 3 to 5% take rate to Apple every year, but they're going to the mat and fighting this fight as a negotiation to try and reduce that bill that they're paying Apple every year.
It is worth mentioning that Apple and Epic are going toe to toe here, but the concept of a 30% take rate is generally the industry standard when you look at like a Google App Store, for example. And so I think that there are some bigger pieces at play here, but that makes sense. They don't want to pay the 100 million a year. They want to pay 10 million. And would there be any other motivations beyond pure financial motivations? I think that makes a ton of sense of why they keep pushing this. They've essentially had some losses. Apple hasn't bent or broken since last August, and now we have this North Dakota update. Any other reasons why they might be pursuing this?
Yeah, there's perhaps a moral argument too, or a societal argument that the App Store and or app stores in general that we use on our smartphones have become a public utility equal to electricity, water, garbage services, right? And that a 30% take rate from the operator of a public utility is just too steep. And I can see the argument, even though I at this point don't agree, given the competition that Google and other app stores can provide and other alternates that they provide to users. So there may be a moral argument to be had, but it's one that I disagree with.
Makes sense. I would add another piece to it as I think about their motivations. This ultimately probably needs to come down to some sort of decision from Congress, because we talked about this being more of an industry question versus an Apple question about what is the proper take rate. And I wonder if in the back of their playbook, Epic is thinking we're kind of starting a message to Congress and build coalitions around that message, that they think that this is unfair. Perhaps that's another motivation here. I'm going to give the case for Apple quickly is that
Well,
they
first, Gene, before you do, there's a sort of a parallel there with some of the decisions that the big tech companies have been making around free speech. And you could argue that that should also be an issue sorted out in the court of law based on case
agree.
precedents. And this question between Apple and Epic is similar, that we have systems for this and we have case law precedent to sort through this. This isn't the first time that the US has considered regulating an industry. And so I would agree with you that in many ways, the US government should be stepping in and at least having the debate instead of allowing tech companies to sort it out themselves. The problem is that tech can move so much faster than the government that
Hmm.
we have this conundrum on our hands where, because of the speed at which tech can move and frankly the slowness of the government, there's a catch 22 on some of these issues where the government just can't keep up to make that decision on their behalf to do their job.
Makes sense. And I think it's a good takeaway from this episode is that we're likely not near resolution. As I think about, Apple's perspective on this too, we're going to remove the bigger picture question that you talked about with legislation and Congress and their role in all this and just zero in at Epic versus Apple. And as I set aside my biases, which along with you are positive on Apple, but I set those biases aside, it seems clear to me that Apple is in the right of way here. I'm not a lawyer, but it seems that Apple has the right to set the rules around their store as appropriate. And the analogy that I would think of is, if imagine somebody, I don't know who makes Oreos, Nestle, whoever is
Nabisco?
Nabisco. Thank you.
Maybe. I don't know.
Well, whoever makes Oreos, they decide that they want to set up their own table inside a grocery store to sell their Oreos, and they're not going to follow the hours of operation of the grocery store and whatever sort of safety and cleanliness rules that they have, and they're going to take cash only and kind of circumvent any of the rails around the experience. And to me, that concept of the individual Oreo table in the grocery store is absurd. And I see some parallels here between some of the things that Epic is asking for help around too. And Andrew, I'm going to give you a final word. How do you think this plays out over the next 6 months? Is there going to be more blows between the two companies? Is there's going to be any sort of resolution? Is Apple going to try to make some accommodations for Epic? How do you see this evolving?
Well, I think the war of words and threatening actions will continue over the next 6 months, but I certainly don't see any kind of resolution coming within the next 6 months. Back to my point about the speed at which the government and the legislature can move. So no resolution in the next 6 months. And in terms of the final word on the question itself, your analogy to the grocery store and the maker of Oreos setting up their own table to sell Oreos is a really good one, because they'd be infringing on the rights of the grocery store owner as the operator of a private business. And I think here we see a participant in the market trying to infringe on the rights of Apple and the way they want to run their private business.
Mhm.
So I it's a tough issue for sure, and one that should be sorted out in the court of law, but I think it'll take a long time to get there.
It'll take some time, and during that time, we're gonna be continue to give you updates along the way on behalf of one of the 30 people that was there when the App Store was actually announced in 2010, Andrew Murphy and myself, who was in the office watching on the internet, watching a blog on the internet. This is Loop TV, and bye for now.